Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream Sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in as we wrap up another week. Glad to have you. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your day. Here's what we're going to talk about today. The Trump administration's border czar, Tom Homan, announced yesterday that the 2-month-old immigration enforcement surge across Minnesota is coming to an end, but will continue to have a small footprint in the state for, quote, a little bit longer. We have those details for you. A U.S. federal judge has ordered the Venezuelan men that the Trump administration deported to El Salvador early last year be returned to the United States, stating that they did not receive due process in some cases. Again, this same liberal activist judge trying to undo what the president's administration trying to accomplish here. We'll talk about that. The Obama-era greenhouse gas rules, this is some good news here, are gone. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin signed the single largest deregulatory action in our country's history. We have the details and just what this means for you. And Governor Henry McMaster made it official yesterday. South Carolina's longest-serving governor endorsed his Lieutenant Governor, Pamela Evette, as the Republican who can carry his legacy into what he coined the South Carolina century.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills, but I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Trump administration border czar Tom Homan yesterday announced that the 2-month-old immigration enforcement surge across Minneapolis, Minnesota, is coming to an end.
With that, and success that has been made arresting public safety threats and other priorities since this surge operation began, as well as the unprecedented levels of coordination we have obtained from state officials and local law enforcement, I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week.
Mr. Homan has sought to calm tensions between the White House, ICE, the Border Patrol, and the local and state officials in Minneapolis and Minnesota for a couple of weeks now. He credited the increased local cooperation for agreeing to the drawdown. He went on to talk about the success of the program and how things, in his words, have calmed in the past few weeks.
Since I have been here, I've repeatedly emphasized that the unlawful and violent agitator activity is unacceptable and must wind down as a condition for further drawdown of law enforcement personnel. I cannot remove law enforcement personnel while violence poses serious risk to our officers. I will not leave my officers in that position. It is worth knowing that in all my meetings and discussions since I got here, I've not heard one federal, state, local law enforcement, or judicial official, nor any member of the business or faith communities that I met with, say that ICE is an illegitimate agency that doesn't have a real mission. Quite the opposite. All I've heard is the acknowledgement that federal immigration laws passed by Congress do exist, and ICE has a legitimate responsibility to enforce those laws. ICE is a legitimate federal law enforcement agency. We're not out scouring the streets to disappear people or deny people their civil rights or due process. In addition to taking public safety threats off the street, ICE here in this state have located 3,364 missing unaccompanied alien children. Children that the last administration lost and weren't even looking for. That's because the leadership of President Trump, these children were located. As part of the de-escalation efforts, I have called on state and local officials these past few weeks to tone down the rhetoric and denounce unlawful activities being conducted by the agitators. We don't have to agree on everything, and we definitely do not. But we all agree that the lawlessness and chaos and disruption that is occurring on the street needs to end. I want to thank Governor Walz for his messages focusing on peace and his support for the Minnesota State Troopers to respond to unlawful situations that put federal officers and the public at risk. I also want to thank Mayor Fry for taking a public stance against agitators setting up barricades that block streets and endanger public safety, and for directing the police to take those roadblocks down.
Mr. Homan credited the Operation Metro Surge with more than 4,000 arrests, the recovery, as you heard, of 3,364 unaccompanied migrant children whom he claimed the last administration lost and were not even looking for. Now, think about that for a minute. Have you heard the mainstream media talking about this? Have you heard anyone mentioning these 3,364 children who have just been out there? No one's trying to find them. No one's trying to account for where they are or where they've been. He also talked about ICE arresting 2 criminal aliens with criminal sexual misconduct convictions, among other violent criminals, as he gave examples of the worst of the worst. He denied accusations that ICE has made arrests in schools, churches, hospitals. We've heard that. We've seen it on social media, saying that he could not find any proof of any of that occurring, other than the 9 demonstrators, including former CNN anchor Don Lemon, who were apprehended because they stormed a church in St. Paul back on January the 18th. At its height, Operation Metro Surge saw more than 3,000 ICE and Border Patrol personnel swarm Minneapolis. Of course, this triggered a lot of local unrest. It resulted, because of the protesters, it resulted in a couple of deaths. Last week, Mr. Homan announced a drawdown of 700 personnel, which brought the federal force on the ground to about 2,000. Roughly 150 federal immigration enforcement officers were present in Minneapolis before the surge began. And as we heard, he's going to start systematically withdrawing the rest, just leaving a small presence. I don't know what small means, if that means 100 or 200 or whatever. But I'd love to get your comments. I'd love to get your feedback, because when I first learned this and I first started reading the headlines that were sent out yesterday, saying that Mr. Homan would be having a news conference, he'd be making a statement, and the speculation was that he would announce exactly what he announced, that they were withdrawing. My first response was, well, they're just giving in. They're letting a bunch of street thugs yell, scream, blow their whistles, confront ICE agents, federal law enforcement agents, and they're giving in. They're leaving because of these demonstrators, or agitators, as we're now calling them. And I'd love to get your thoughts. Do you think we caved too soon? Do you think that the federal government allowed these protesters to pull out before the job's done? Now, Mr. Homan, as you heard him say, he seems to be convinced that they did their job. You tell me, did we cave, or was it somewhere in between? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the My Pillow text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639, and just leave me a quick voice message. After I listened to Mr. Homan, though, I mean, that was my first response of seeing the headlines. But after I listened to Mr. Homan, and I've read other reports since his news conference yesterday, I have a little bit of a different opinion of it. I do think that he made a difference. ICE made a difference in Minneapolis. Maybe they would have stayed longer had there not been so much unrest. But at some point, you just have to acknowledge that if these idiots out there in Minneapolis are happy with their city, if they're happy with having these criminals in their communities, then let them have it. Let them fend for their own. If they don't want the help, if they want these murderers, these rapists, these robbers walking around in their neighborhoods, then leave them to their own device. Maybe it'll take one of their kids being raped, or their spouse being murdered, or their business being robbed before they realize just how stupid it is not to be deporting these people. But based on what Mr. Homan told us yesterday, and you look at the numbers, the 4,000 arrests, and specifically the idea that they were able to help these 3,364 unaccompanied migrant children, that in itself looks like success to me. What about you? Again, send me a quick note, text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639.
Joey Hudson here. You tried keto, paleo, Weight Watchers, intermittent fasting. You lose weight, then it comes right back. You blame yourself, your willpower, your discipline. But here's the truth. It was never about willpower. There's one thing that determines whether your body burns fat or stores it, and if you don't fix that first, every diet will fail. At PhD Weight Loss, they identify that one thing, and they build a plan that works with your body, not against it. And if you call now, you're going to get 2 weeks free in the program, and they'll pay for your food so you can finally see real answers without more trial and error. If you've done the yo-yo dieting and want clarity, call PhD Weight Loss now and mention Joey Hudson. No more guessing, just answers. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Say Joey Hudson. That's 864-644-1900. Also find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com. Do it once and for all. Lose the weight the right way by calling PhD Weight Loss today.
Before we leave the topic of immigration, ICE, Border Patrol, federal enforcement, remember the issue with the Hilton hotel brand being pulled from the Hampton Inn in a part of Minneapolis early on during this surge, where the ICE agents were told there wasn't any room at the inn? Well, it appears that there's another business, a national brand, who may find themselves in hot water as well. Here's the story. In late January, U.S. Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino and federal agents reportedly walked into a 7-Eleven-owned Speedway gas station in Minneapolis and were denied service. A video posted by conservative activist Cam Higbee shows Commander Bovino exiting the store while a manager follows behind saying, "I don't support ICE and nobody here does." Now let's think about this for a minute. This wasn't just about a disagreement over immigration policy, which that manager has the right to disagree with policy. But this involved federal agents on duty. It wasn't about buying a snack or buying a soda. According to the General Services Administration, the reported refusal may have included fuel purchases as well. Now, why does that matter? Well, this could turn from a local confrontation to a potential federal contract issue. On February the 5th, Michael Lynch is Deputy Administrator of the General Services Administration. He sent a formal letter to Doug Rosencrans, the COO of 7-Eleven. The message? He wants some answers. Now, why does this matter? Well, because 7-Eleven and its subsidiary Speedway accepts the GSA Smart Pay fleet card.
the card used by federal vehicles to purchase fuel and authorized services. That includes fleets operated by the Department of Homeland Security. And here's the key point. For non-tactical federal vehicles, using the GSA fleet program is mandatory. So they don't have the option of refueling these vehicles on an active military base or something. They have to use these contracted services like Speedway to buy their fuel. I haven't seen any numbers, but I would suspect it's probably some pretty big numbers. So when a major national chain like 7-Eleven Speedway refuses service to federal agents, particularly if that refusal extends to fuel transactions, the federal government has to ask a very basic operational question. Can our people rely on your stores to do their job? Now, this wasn't an isolated incident. Earlier this year, the GSA, as we talked about, removed a Hampton Inn Lakeville from its approved lodging list after agents were refused rooms. A McDonald's location in downtown Minneapolis posted a sign stating ICE and CBP agents were not welcome. Corporate headquarters later instructed the franchise to remove it. And in another instance, a restaurant displayed bright anti-ICE signage on its front door, with employees wearing apparel carrying similar messaging. Now, businesses absolutely have First Amendment rights. Owners, managers can hold political opinions. But when a business enters into a federal partnership, accepting government fleet cards, lodging federal employees, participating in federal procurement systems, the question then becomes, does that partnership require neutrality in providing services? Can you refuse services if you have a contract? And that's the problem here. The GSA letter makes it clear that this isn't about punishing speech. It's about access. The GSA SmartPay fleet card, according to the reports, is accepted at roughly 95% of fuel stations nationwide. The entire system is built on reliability and availability. These federal fleets have to be able to get fuel to operate, to do their service. This includes law enforcement and Homeland Security. They depend on it. So if agents can't reliably fuel their vehicles at participating locations, it's not just a political disagreement. It becomes an operational disruption. And the GSA made it very clear in its letter. Cooperation from 7-Eleven will determine whether program-related actions are warranted. In other words, the partnership itself could be on the line, just like the Hampton Inn lost their franchise from Hilton, as they should have. Now, why does this matter beyond Minneapolis? Well, the story hits on something that we're seeing more frequently across the country, unfortunately. The merging of personal politics and business operations. The Trump administration, particularly in its current posture, has been aggressive in defending federal law enforcement operations, as they should. Minneapolis has become a flashpoint in that broader immigration enforcement fight. We've seen just some things that should not be happening anywhere. So when businesses post signs barring ICE, when managers verbally refuse service, when viral videos circulate, it can escalate very quickly. And now we're seeing the federal government respond not through press conferences, not through threats, but through procurement authority. And again, I got to believe that this would have to be a lot of money, a big number to 7-Eleven in these owned gas stations, service centers, because federal purchasing power is huge. I mean, how many of you who own small businesses would like to have a federal contract? You don't have to worry about payment, and it could be a big number for you. The GSA fleet program touches thousands and thousands of vehicles. Look, if I'm an owner of some type of convenience store and I'm selling fuel, I would love to be a part of this program. So as of now, 7-Eleven has not publicly responded to the letter, or there's no publication of that if they have. And look, that silence may simply mean that they're conducting an internal review, which I hope they are. They should be. The GSA specifically asked for information regarding any investigation, policies, or training related to fleet card acceptance. Now, this could come down to one manager making an unauthorized decision. That manager could lose their job. Or it could raise larger questions about store-level discretion in a very politically charged environment. Either way, I can assure you that 7-Eleven is going to be held accountable, and it could cost them a lot of money. We saw something very encouraging happen yesterday. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin announced the agency will be eliminating the 2009 endangerment finding issued during the Obama administration. The determination that greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane endanger public health and welfare under the Clean Air Act. That 2009 decision became the legal backbone for most federal greenhouse gas emission standards for vehicles over the past decade and a half. It affects your life whether you realize it or not. And now, the Trump EPA says no more. We're going to undo it. So here's what this means. Let me just tell you about the 2009 endangerment finding. The Environmental Protection Agency concluded then that greenhouse gases contributed to climate change and pose a risk to public health. That finding came after the landmark 2007 Supreme Court ruling in Massachusetts versus EPA, which held that greenhouse gases qualify as, quote, air pollutants under the Clean Air Act, and that if the EPA determines they endanger public health, it has the authority to regulate them. Well, that's all the Obama administration needed to hear. That's all the Democrats and the tree huggers needed to have. Once the endangerment finding was issued, it triggered a huge load of regulations, a cascade of regulations, vehicle emission standards, fuel economy incentives, compliance credits that reshape the American auto industry and added a lot of costs to our vehicles. So let's fast forward to today, under Trump 2.0. Administrator Lee Zeldin says that framework has produced heavy regulatory costs with limited measurable environmental benefits. Does that surprise you? Now, so how does this affect you? If you've ever been sitting at a red light and you felt your engine click off, then back on, you know exactly what this is about, don't you? Does it just drive you insane? Is it not just annoying? The start-stop feature, widely adopted over this past decade, was incentivized through EPA-created regulatory credits beginning in 2012. Zeldin didn't mince words. He said Americans have passionately advocated against the feature, calling it annoying and costly, arguing it wears down batteries and offers minimal environmental benefits. Is that not just music to your ears? Do you hate that feature as much as I do? Mr. Zeldin's argument was automakers shouldn't be forced or rewarded for technologies that amount to what he described as a climate participation trophy, and that's exactly what it was. They got on this bandwagon and forced, kind of like Joe Biden tried to do with EVs. I mean, automakers were scrambling during the Biden years, trying to build these EV manufacturing facilities, spending billions, and now they don't even want to manufacture them because there's no demand for them. And they're scrapping a lot of those plants, or at least scaling them back. But they only did it because they felt like they were being forced to by a presidential administration. So the broader message here from the EPA is clear. Consumer choice should take precedence over regulatory pressure. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said rescinding the 2009 finding could represent the largest deregulatory action in American history, estimating savings of $1.3 trillion in regulatory cost. Now, that's a huge number. That's a bold claim. The administration argues that these regulations increase vehicle cost, that it complicated manufacturing, and it imposed compliance burdens that ripple through supply chains. Supporters say rolling them back could reduce sticker prices, ease mandates, and boost domestic auto productions. Now, the environmentalists say the long-term cost could come in other ways. The opposition, they're ready to pounce. Environmental legal groups are already signaling lawsuits. They're going to go to court. They're going to get their attorneys out on the street. Earth Justice President Abigail Dillon told PBS there is no way to reconcile EPA's decision with the law, the science, and the reality of disasters. These people are just, well, I better not call them idiots. Actually, they are idiots, though, aren't they? What she's saying there is this fight is heading back to federal court, and it's going to cost a lot of money. And isn't that a sad state? That our federal government can recognize what people are saying, because I can't think of a single person who wants their vehicle to sit at a red light, stopping and starting. Do you? Especially since it's been proven that it doesn't help the climate. Now remember, the legal foundation for starting this whole charade anyway is still Massachusetts versus EPA. That Supreme Court precedent hasn't gone anywhere. So this isn't just regulatory policy. It's potentially a constitutional separation of powers battle over agency authority and statutory interpretation. So that's why these legal groups are going to be gearing up, and they're going to spend a lot of money to try to get this in front of federal judges. Some of the activist federal judges will probably try to stop this. So watch in the next few weeks. You'll probably see judges ruling that they have to temporarily suspend moving in this direction until some of these court cases can work their way through the courts, which could take years. Some governors are already making clear they won't follow Washington's lead. Colorado, Governor Jared Polis, said he stands by the science behind the 2009 guidance. What science are you referring to, Governor? The Trump administration is looking at the science as well. And anybody with a little bit of common sense can tell you that having your vehicle start and stop at a red light is not going to have too big of an effect on the environment. It's not going to save a whole lot. But you're going to have states like Colorado, California, who have historically pursued stricter emission standards than even the federal standards. They're going to probably continue. So this is not going to necessarily benefit everybody, but the more common sense states, they're going to see a big decrease. That means we could potentially see, though, kind of like we've seen with EVs. You know how California has their ban of diesel vehicles within a certain period of time, and you had these EV manufacturers trying to figure out how to get an 18-wheeler operating off of batteries. You're going to have some of that. There's going to be some, it's going to be sort of like a patchwork system where federal rules ease up, but certain states maintain aggressive emission mandates. So some of the car manufacturers are still going to have to produce some of these features, which are going to affect you and me, because car manufacturers can't produce a vehicle just for Colorado necessarily. So that's going to create some complexity for all automakers who prefer one uniform national standard rather than 50 variations depending on the state. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy framed the move as part of President Trump's broader vision to lower costs and revitalize manufacturing. The Trump administration, their argument's very straightforward. Reduce regulatory burden. Donald Trump, in his first term, reduced and eliminated more regulations than any administration in the past. He's on record to do the same thing this second term. But he also wants to increase domestic production. He wants to lower vehicle costs. He wants to expand consumer options. Opponents counter that regulatory certainty actually helps industry plan long-term investments in cleaner technologies. So, which vision wins? That likely depends on the courts and what we're going to see probably between now and the next several years. And the other factor is going to be the 2028 political landscape as we head into another presidential year and we start looking beyond President Donald Trump. So where do we go here? Well, here's what we know. If the 2009 endangerment finding is formally rescinded, which that's what they're doing, every federal greenhouse gas vehicle standard tied to it would be unwound. Doesn't automatically eliminate every emissions rule overnight. As I just said, some states may try to require it, so some manufacturers may keep it intact for a while. But you can expect some immediate legal challenges, expect motions for injunctions, expect a rapid trip through the appellate courts, and very possibly expect the Supreme Court to weigh in again very quickly. Either way, it is a move in the right direction. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Governor Henry McMaster made it official yesterday, endorsing his Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette as the Republican who can carry his legacy into what he coined the South Carolina century. The backing of South Carolina's longest-serving governor comes 4 months before voters decide what candidates will be the Republican-Democrat nominees. Ms. Evette is among 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats vying to replace Governor McMaster. Here's what he had to say.
The great American comeback started right here in South Carolina, a conservative success story that made us the envy of every state in the nation. I'm Henry McMaster. As your governor 8 years ago, I needed a partner on the ticket to help me make our state the best place to live, work, and raise a family. I chose Pamela Evette. Together, we broke records, creating new jobs. We delivered the largest tax cut in state history by a lot. We won at the Supreme Court, protecting the lives of the born and unborn. We closed that revolving door that had let violent criminals out over and over. We preserved and protected our farms, forests, and cultural heritage. And we followed plain old common sense and the Constitution when other states had goofy ideas about right and wrong. And when it came to President Trump, Pamela Evette stood with me from day one, 8 years ago, helping me bring the America First agenda home to South Carolina. Now, I'm proud to endorse Pamela Evette to be our next governor. South Carolina is strong, and we are winning. If Pamela Evette is our next governor, we will keep winning.
Although filing has not started, that will be March 16th. We currently have, of course, Lieutenant Governor Evette running, Attorney General Alan Wilson, Congressman Ralph Norman, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, and South Carolina Senator Josh Kimbrell. So a crowded field, but this is a big deal for Pamela Evette and her campaign. Governor McMaster, 78 years old, he referred to Miss Evette as his eyes and ears. And you got to, if you've kept up with this at all, you know that Lieutenant Governor Evette, who's been on this show many times over the years, has been a loyal team member to Henry McMaster. Governor McMaster sees Ms. Evette as the candidate who will follow his approach to getting things done through his often repeated phrase of collaboration, cooperation, and communication. And that approach explains why Governor McMaster's initiatives have had more success in the legislature than any of his GOP predecessors. It also explains why many GOP legislators have already endorsed Pamela Evette as well. They included House Ways and Means Chairman Bruce Bannister from here in the upstate, in Greenville, House Majority Leader Davy Hyatt of Pickens, who were among roughly 20 legislators who attended yesterday's event. Others in attendance you could see in some of the video released, former state GOP chairwoman Karen Floyd, South Carolina Porch Board Chairman Bill Stern. And beyond boosting Lieutenant Governor Evette's profile at a time when, again, many voters are just starting to pay attention, and the candidates haven't even filed yet, the public blessing from our sitting governor could also signal that an endorsement from President Donald Trump may follow. Now, the rumor is that maybe President Trump doesn't get involved in this race at all, with so many candidates involved. I know certainly some of the other candidates whom I have talked with have expressed that they don't think he will. But if Donald Trump were to endorse someone, I've got to believe that it probably would be Lieutenant Governor Evette, simply because of his relationship with Governor Henry McMaster. As you recall, the president has given Governor McMaster a lot of credit for him winning the presidency, because Henry McMaster was the first statewide elected person in the entire country to endorse a Donald Trump years ago when others were not taking him seriously in the political world. Now, Pamela Evette has been by McMaster's side at public events since he picked her. She was a political novice as his running mate in November 2017. She's a business person. When Governor McMaster picked her as his running mate, it wasn't because she had great political experience, because she hadn't. She had not been involved in politics. And she's painted herself as the non-politician. And she's also promoted herself as the most Trump-aligned candidate from the outset. Her campaign launched a video last July featuring a montage of Governor McMaster, President Trump, both praising her. So did a TV ad last fall, The Race is First, which brought criticism from two GOP opponents, Attorney General Alan Wilson and U.S. Representative Nancy Mace, who blasted the commercial as falsely suggesting the two had endorsed her. In return, Ms. Evette has criticized them as unloyal to Trump between his 2020 loss and 2024 comeback. So Trump plays a big role in this race, whether he endorses or not, because every single candidate, as they should, I guess it's politically smart, is trying to out-Trump the other. So it's going to be up to the voters to decide who actually brings that conservative leadership to the Palmetto State. Yesterday, Governor McMaster stressed Ms. Evette's connection to Trump. He said, when it came to President Trump, Pamela Evette stood with me from day one, 8 years ago. And again, that's expected to help the lieutenant governor in a race with polls showing undecided winning the day right now, because people just haven't tuned in to the race. Unless you are really involved in politics, you may not have paid any attention to any of them. But as we head into March and the candidates start filing, and they're officially candidates then, and we get closer to that June 9th primary, you got to make a decision, because you're going to potentially have 5 choices. Now, all of them may not file. I can't imagine that you would announce that you were going to run, and they've all been campaigning, but still, it's not official until they actually sign the paperwork and write the check to the GOP. So it's going to be interesting to watch
as this unfolds. But and look, I don't know that yesterday was a big surprise. I think everyone expected Henry McMaster to endorse Ms. Evette because, again, she's been a loyal foot soldier out there helping him succeed in an administration that has accomplished a lot for the state. Whether you like Henry McMaster or not, he's been an effective governor. And yesterday, with the endorsement and with Lieutenant Governor Evette, she's kind of positioned herself just like Nikki Haley did back in 2010 as an outsider, not really a politician, a business background. And you got to remember, Nikki Haley defeated a long list of male candidates back then, including Henry McMaster. Of course, then Lieutenant Governor McMaster became governor when Nikki Haley was appointed in the first Trump administration. That's it for today's show. Tara's up next, followed by Mike Gallagher, Bill Frady, Charlie James. We're back on Monday for more Sunrise Carolina. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.